Hey, this is Carl. In this video, I want to go through some tips to actually help make you become a better artist. The way that I actually look at it is there's 4 different pillars. So it's not just so much about becoming a good artist in terms of what you actually produce, but there's also the other components that I'll go through as well. So the four top pillars is what I'll go through, and it will pretty much give you a broad view and a detailed map, because we'll actually go through each pillar individually. So the first one will be to develop your craft. And not only develop your craft, but in doing that, also discovering your voice. Now to do that, of course, it takes a bit of practice. So there are things that you can actually incorporate into becoming a better artist in terms of what you actually produce on the canvas, or whether you're charcoal or whatever your medium happens to be. So one of the first things you can actually do is use books, of course. And books are really good in terms of reference. So if you can get your hands on books in terms of actually producing art, or different concepts, different styles of art, and also the general tutorials. And that leads me to my next one, which is you can also get a lot from tutorials online. There's a lot of YouTube videos, of course. There's also a lot of artists that will show demonstrations on their website, so it's really good to try and absorb a lot of that as well. But also, if you want to do something more local, you can actually do classes offline. And that's also a really good way to network with other artists, or other artists that are just starting out, and also get in front of a teacher. I probably wouldn't take on too much. You want to develop your own style, but in terms of the basics of developing your skill and different formats, different ways of actually producing art, offline classes are really good. So I highly recommend getting out there and networking, and absorbing as much as you can in regards to what other people have got to offer to develop your skills. Also, just simply experiment. That's probably one of the best ways. And that's where you'll discover your own voice in terms of how you produce your art. The moment when you actually start to develop your own voice, it's quite empowering, and what that does is just really lifts your confidence as an artist as well. So I always highly recommend to keep working, experiment with different styles, and generally just keep working. And that leads me to my next one, which would be always be working. And that could be daily. If you've got like a sketch pad, if you've got the canvas available, whatever format or whatever style of art you're producing, just make it accessible so that you're pretty much on deck and been producing work, whether it's in a sketchbook or in front of a canvas each day. So that could be, you could be just sketching, not just sketching, but also drawing as well, and even doodling, which is really which is also good for coming up with abstract concepts, which is a really good way to experiment with your art. Ultimately, what you want to be doing is just getting a lot of expression out, and that's essentially what a lot of what you're doing in art is, expressing it and just playing and experimenting with the expression on the canvas, or if you're sketching. Also, another thing is to try different mediums. So a good example of that could be oil paints, because oil paints generally take a little bit longer to dry. You can manipulate them for a lot longer as well, of course, with oil paints, where with acrylic paints, they tend to dry a bit. Also, charcoal, pencil, of course, is a really good one, especially when you're just doing sketching. That's in little pads, a more accessible sort of way of actually producing your art, rather than sort of setting up big canvases and getting all your equipment out. One thing I always recommend as well, it may not be something that you can do right away, but as you start to get a bit more money coming in, try and focus on getting really good supplies, because that really helps in terms of the development of your work as well. So good supplies. So they're the bare basics in regards to pillar 1. So to develop your craft and just discover your voice and just always be working. As we've just gone through in terms of, you know, getting out there, maybe doing a couple of classes, experimenting as much as you can, looking at tutorials online. One important thing though is try not to get too absorbed in the actual watching of videos. You want to be doing rather than watching. So it's actually take some things on board and then absorb it into your own work, but don't get caught into the trap of just watching and watching and watching and watching and not actually producing any content yourself. Pillar 2 is mindset, also your environment, your productivity, and also your energy. I've always believed that you can't actually control time. You can't manage time, but you can control your energy. So if you can do that, then you've got a lot better way of actually producing on a regular, more consistent basis. So one of the things in terms of mindset is self-talk. You know, what are you telling yourself? And what are you telling yourself you can do? What are you telling yourself that you can't do? It's really important that you actually watch what you're thinking and be mindful of what you're actually thinking, because it can have a huge effect in regards to your confidence and actually what you're producing. Because if you talk down to yourself too much, you're pretty much going to run away, you know, like a scared rat. And you don't want to do that. You want to be building yourself up constantly. And when you apply yourself to keep working and practice that really good mindset of actually believing what you're doing and talk yourself up. I don't mean that you need to run around town and tell everyone how good you are. What I mean is that you just want to be mindful of what you're actually thinking when you're producing. There are a lot of really good books in terms of mindset. Also, books that will help you with your focus as well, and as well as your growth. Actually, I've got a really good book here. One book that I highly recommend is The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Mine's looking a bit ragged at the moment. It's pretty old now. I must have read this more than any other book. And what it will do is, if you can't work out why you're resisting doing the work, and you keep putting things off, you're procrastinating, you're frustrated, get this book. Grab yourself a copy of this book. You'll be able to get one on Amazon. But books like this will help hugely in regards to your self-talk, focus, and also your growth. It's important to look out for your health as well. I know there's been times when it's been a real struggle for me as an artist, and your belief starts to drop a lot, and that really starts to affect your health. You start eating the wrong things, maybe drinking too much alcohol, maybe staying up too late, so you start to neglect your health. So that's a really important one in terms of the second pillar in regards to becoming a better artist. Trying to find ways that help you relax, because when you can actually relax, you'll tend to focus a lot better, and you'll stop this urgency to try and produce a result all the time. And what that would do is eliminate frustration, any form of anxiety. Well, you'll be break free from that as well. So if you can, it could be meditation maybe that you're looking at trying to do. Also the ambience in the working environment that you have. It could be music, it could even be podcast, but something that's helping you relax while you're actually working. But not just when you're producing work, but also when you're doing other things outside of producing art, that you can actually get into the habit of being able to relax more, because that will help hugely. One thing is to be really consistent. Consistency will build muscle, and what that does is it helps with your belief, and it helps with your self-talk as well, because if you're consistently working at something, of course you're going to progress and you're going to build that muscle and you're going to get better. It's going to help with your mindset, also with your productivity level as well. Make it easy to start. Make it easy just to just get started. So what that means is perhaps have your working environment all set up, because one of the biggest issues, and I had a conversation with another artist just recently, is that they're struggling with their time. So what I recommended that they do is, if you can have your studio set up, if you work in a studio, so all you want to be doing is when you get up, if you have to get up early, if you're working a 9 to 5, or if you need to get up so that you're not running around doing all these other things before you actually get out there and produce work. Ideally, you want to be able just to walk in the studio, turn on the light, and bang, start working straight away. So you want to make it really easy. So if you're creating all these obstructions around you, all these things that have to be done before you actually get in front of the canvas and start working, or if you have to set up your easel, you have to start setting up all your paints, if you have to clean clutter from everywhere, it makes it really difficult, and you become, you lose your momentum, you lose your motivation. So that's what that means. Make it easy just to get started, have everything set up. And it could even mean that if you are getting up early in the morning, make sure that your painting clothes are ready to go. So all you need to do is just slip them on, walk into the studio, turn the light, and bang, you're on your way. One thing that really helps me, as I'm sure it probably does yourself, is music. Having music, which really creates a really good environment. And also it stirs your imagination as well, which is really good in terms of creativity. But also jumps back to relaxation as well, so that helps with the relaxing side of things. Music's kind of self-explanatory, really. I mean, you just have it on as background noise, or you could have it, you know, really powering the room, so it's really filling the room with energy, which I tend to do on a lot of occasions. Another really important thing is having a lot of light. If you can have a lot of natural light coming in, that really helps. If you're using sort of artificial lights, what it tends to do is it can sort of throw you a little bit in regards to the colors that you're actually using on the canvas if you're producing canvas work. So you want to use a lot of natural light if you can. If you are working through the night, then just make sure it's just really good light and more sort of honest light, rather than these sort of too much fluorescent kind of lighting, which can sort of, it sort of distorts your thinking a little bit. I don't know, in some cases some people get headaches and things like that. So natural light, more natural light is always going to be better for you. Good vibes. It's kind of simple, but it helps. You want to have good vibes, and that could, you know, what you're surrounding yourself with in regards to your working environment, also the people that you're hanging out with as well. You don't want sort of people that are sort of giving you hang-ups and, you know, sort of sucking a lot of your energy. So you want to be able to maybe just choose your environment very carefully in terms of who you're hanging out with, and, you know, what you're actually absorbing, you know, through listening and through communication, but also in your direct working environment as well. So just making sure that you got really good vibes and there's really good things happening around you. A real critical one is simply allow yourself to make mistakes. You're not really seeking perfection. You're really seeking, well, essentially you're on a journey regardless of what piece you're actually working on. The whole process is a journey that you've got to enjoy. And if it's a race to the end, then you're really not producing, you're not really producing art for the sake of producing art. What you're seeking as a result is almost like you're trying to work towards a reward for something. So allow yourself to make mistakes, because you actually learn a lot from it as well. There's nothing wrong with screwing up. I mean, it's just the way that you're actually going to produce better work, to realize where you're going wrong, what you can do better, and being critical of yourself is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't beat yourself up, you know, just be mindful of that self-talk as well.